a brilliant way to think of this plant is kind of like the Marie Kondo of herbal remedies. You let go of what you don't need. Imagine it as the plant for spring cleaning, transition times. We're moving from winter into spring, and we're looking at things to release and let go of. So moving out of a season of winter where there's been a lot of stagnancy, usually more rich and heavy foods, into the spring. We're also in late April as we're filming this, and we're in the middle of a global pandemic. So this is also a time where people are stagnant and sitting more. My name is Alex Svoboda. I am a community and clinical herbalist, and I run the business Arise Botanicals. We're going to be talking about Cleavers today. This is a perfect plant for this time of year, this season of transition. Cleavers is a plant that I like to discuss because it is everywhere. Many call it a weed. It's also known as velcro plant because it travels easily. It's also known by the scientific or Latin name, Gallium aparine, and it's in the same family it's related to coffee. Gallium, or Cleavers, is an annual plant, but it self-seeds very readily. So it's tender, it's easy to squish and move. It doesn't have strong woody stems. It's one that dies back every year and spreads its seeds very, very readily. It has a square stem and small hairs that go up and down the stem that allow it to stick. So right now in our area, Cleavers is just going into flower, and it has these beautiful tiny white flowers with 4 petals that are cross-section from each other. And so they're very, very small, about the size of a pinhead, and this would be the time, if you're looking to work with Cleavers as a herbal remedy, to look to harvest and just get to know the plant, just to notice it. That's the first step, is finding Cleavers, and it'll probably find you. And so when it's just going into flower, is the time where it's really becoming showy and it's ready to reproduce and put its seeds out. And this would be the time where you can use what's called the aerial part of the plant, everything that grows above ground. Cleavers gets to be about this tall, up to about 12 inches. I like to use it as a tea, as a vinegar, as a wash, as an oil. And this is where I think herbalism becomes overwhelming, because people are like, so many plants, so much to do, so many things that I'd like to learn and how to use it. And it's really, again, that noticing and finding the way that's easiest. And so what I'd like to discuss is water extracts, teas, and vinegars today. That's a good place to start. If we're talking about Cleavers in water, grateful that we can have easy and free access to clean water in our lives. And if you can find some Cleavers, you just rough chop the plant into about 1-inch sections into a jar, pour hot water, boil water on the stove and pour hot water on top, and just put a lid on it. And Cleavers is one of the few plants that I like to recommend as a fresh plant tea, but not as a dried plant. I mean, it's full of chlorophyll. It's springtime. You can see that it makes a beautiful light green tea. The taste is pretty light and bright. It's one that's slightly sweet and green, and I'm going to enjoy some right now. It's not overly bitter, and it can be a flavor enjoyed by a lot of people. And then as a vinegar, same process, fresh plant, rough chop with kitchen scissors or a knife into about 1-inch sections and put it in a jar. And then instead of water, I recommend, you're going to pour vinegar over it, and I recommend apple cider vinegar. And so you can see it's just really easy to cut through. You're going to chop down the bottom of the plant where it starts to get to the sections that are dry and have been close to the earth, or the roots themselves. I just put back on the earth, and I would fill a jar any size. I recommend starting with about an 8-ounce jar. This is 4 cups, so you could start with a 1-cup jar and fill it most of the way up, loose fill with Cleavers, and pour organic apple cider vinegar or whatever you can access on top. let it sit for a couple weeks, and then you can start to use that vinegar any way that you use apple cider vinegar in your home. So cooking with greens, or using it as a tonic itself, the apple cider vinegar shots, a lot of people do that. And then knowing that that's a way that it's both preserved and you can keep it through the year. What I actually did was find a plant in seed and toss the seeds into a wayside area around my home, and after a couple years they've sprouted up and spread, and that's really how I prefer to garden, is just rewilding the land around me with plants that I want to have a relationship with. I work with clients one-on-one addressing health concerns, and a lot of it is education based, so classes and working with people to help find ways for us to heal ourselves, us to feel empowered to have a relationship with the land and the plants that are growing around us, to find ways to find the pieces that are missing, so to speak, come into balance. I grew up in this area for the most part, and have a deep relationship with this land, and I'm really fortunate to be back in a community. In terms of applications, I think cleavers, you can imagine it as the plant for spring cleaning, transition times. We're moving from winter into spring, and we're looking at things to release and let go of. And so that's both physiologically in the body. Cleavers is known as an alterative, so it's helpful at removing metabolic waste and improving nutrition assimilation. So moving out of a season of winter where there's been a lot of stagnancy, usually more rich and heavy foods, into the spring. We're also in late April as we're filming this, and we're in the middle of a global pandemic. So this is also a time where people are stagnant and sitting more, and in a big change of being able to access movement and like ease of accessing spaces, and sitting in a time of the unknown and stress. Digestive upset is something that I've heard from a lot of people, a way that stress can manifest in our bodies. And so Cleavers is something that's helpful to get to know for just aiding that process of release in the body. And a brilliant way to think of this plant is kind of like the Marie Kondo of herbal remedies. You let go of what you don't need, and something where many people are well aware of this already, but the way that herbal medicine shines is in accepting it as a medicine for both the body and the heart, the mind and the spirit, in all the ways that we exist, sometimes not named, but all the ways that we need to heal. So Cleavers is really helpful for that emotional baggage as well, and it sparks joy. So keep that in mind, that idea of moving, cleansing, clearing, what that means with the body, and things that we could think of for that Cleavers can help to remedy would be skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, things that the skin is showing signs of needing to detox and move. So that also speaks to liver support in the ways of moving, cleansing, and clearing. It also is very helpful for helping with, as it's a diuretic, so something specific could be thought of with UTIs. So these are just a few things to keep in mind. A lot of the questions that people ask of when getting to know an herb is like, what is it good for? So I like to answer that in part, but I also really like to emphasize and lean towards getting to know the plant itself and thinking of it in the broad terms, moving, cleansing, clearing, but then also some specific applications, liver, digestion, skin, but really starting to think of it as the medicine in noticing and feeling held, comforted in knowing that the plants that we need for the times that we're living in, both in seasonal transition and TBH global pandemic, they're all around us.